Hey guys, it's Will from EDM Tips, and today I'm going to be interviewing a world-class music producer from the UK called Lempo. Now, Lempo, aka Mike, has got many achievements to his name. His Twisted Melon show on Mixcloud consistently tops the house charts. He has remixed Snoop Dogg, he has supported Skrillex, Hardwell, the Swedish House Mafia, The Prodigy, all over the world in the Ministry of Sound. He's had residency at Cream. As a DJ and producer, he is prolific. So in this interview, we delve deep and I try and tweak out some nuggets for you guys so you can learn from someone who's already done it. Now, Mike has his own record label, eclectic, and he's also had his music shortlisted for a Grammy nomination and played on television stations all around the world, so he knows a thing or two about the industry. Now, in this interview, we go into marketing yourself, we go into some production techniques, we go into some mindsets that it's really important to have as an up-and-coming producer today, and we talk about the things that have made the biggest difference in both his production quality and in his career in general in the music industry. Thanks for subscribing to my channel, click below to do so, and I hope you enjoy this interview as much as I did. Mike, how's it going?
All good, man. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Thanks for taking the time to speak to me and the EDM Tips viewers. Much appreciated, dude. So yeah, we've known each other for a few years now. First met at BPM a few years ago. You were on the panel. I submitted a track. Then a couple of years later, we were doing it together. So Circle of Life and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. So you've achieved some pretty amazing stuff as a DJ and a producer. And I know that my viewers would be interested to hear about that and how you've kind of developed your career. So if it's okay, we'll go in with some kind of top level stuff first, like marketing and the most important things you've done, and then go into a bit more technical stuff, if that's cool.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, your Twisted Melon show on Mixcloud consistently tops the house music streaming charts. You DJ'd all over the world, Ministry of Sound, Cream, Pasha, Warehouse Project. Obviously you know all this, but I'm just kind of giving people a bit of background knowledge. You've supported household names such as The Prodigy, Fatboy Slim, Disclosure, Aoki, Skrillex. That's like top level stuff, man, so congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And of course you own your own record label, Applique. As I've been told, it's not Applique.
Well, I think if you were French, it would be appliqué, which is where the word is derived from. But up here in the north, nobody seems to get the accent on the spelling. And I think within a week of the launch of the label, it just became Applique. I didn't change the spelling, nor did I start correcting people when they were saying it wrong. So it's kind of stuck as Applique now. Yeah,
fair enough. But your label's had success as well. You've had top 10s in Beatport. You've had tracks on Radio 1, music synced to TV. You've worked with Deadmau5's vocalists, remixed Snoop Dogg. List goes on. It's awesome stuff, man.
Yeah, like anything, when we started out, we never thought it was going to become what it is today. But, you just stick at it, and eventually the artists that we looked up to started coming to us for remixes and stuff, and the fan base spread pretty quickly. Originally, we just started out as a Manchester label, looking to help provide a platform for producers that were struggling to get their music out there. And that little family that we had to begin with have all moved on to much bigger and better things. As you say, it was helped by the fact that some of the tracks got picked up by Radio 1, and then obviously the sales came in that have pushed the releases into top 10s on various download stores and Music Week. And the list goes on. It's just got bigger and bigger, and long may it continue.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there any particular, one achievement that sticks out that you're particularly proud of?
For myself or the label?
For yourself.
Yeah, I think the day that I got the email asking me if I would remix Snoop Dogg stands out massively, because when you get asked to work, well, not necessarily work with someone, but with some parts by an artist of that stature, your heart sort of skips a beat, because that's what you want to do from day one. You get into this industry to work with big names and see how far you can push yourself, and that, I think, up to now, as a producer, that was the peak moment where I got to remix and have an official release of somebody of that stature.
Yeah, I mean that's like, yeah, the upper game, man. That's like top of the game. So how did you get started in the industry?
Well, originally, I was spinning hip hop records at one of the Revolution bars in Manchester, and that came about because I got injured as a break dancer. It actually looked like I was going to have a promising career as a break dancer. I was part of a break dance crew. I know this all sounds ridiculous, skinny white kid from Manchester, possibly becoming a professional break dancer. But the crew that I used to hang around with, when I got injured, I still started going to, well, I didn't stop going to the gigs with them, and I started hanging out in the DJ booth, so I wasn't in the way with my crutches. And I was watching what this DJ was doing. It didn't look all that difficult, and I kept mithering him to let me have a go. Obviously, at first, he pretty much said, "Nah, fuck off."
Yeah.
Eventually, I wore him down. He goes, "Oh, just give me the headphones." Like, go on then, let's see what you've got. And I kind of picked up the beat matching side of things instantaneously. It just came naturally. But I think again that goes hand in hand with people that have got a bit of rhythm for dancing or whatever.
Yeah.
And I never really looked back from there. I started buying my own hip hop records, and eventually I went on a lad's holiday to Ibiza. And I wasn't necessarily into dance music at that time, but it changed me, man. The first trip on the island. I came back a different person. I saw Norman Cook and Carl Cox back to back in space, and I came out of there a changed man. Like, I wanted to find the records that they played that night and have a go at spinning that. So when I got home, I started buying dance records, and then my sort of DJ style became quite eclectic because I was playing hip hop and house music in my sets, and because of that, I started getting a lot of gigs at various bars that wanted a wide range of music. And sooner or later, the hip hop sort of faded away, and I was just solely playing dance records. And eventually, that took me to Sankey's, where I had a residency for a night called Bitch. And everything spiraled from there. More residencies followed all around the country, Liverpool, Leeds, London, and then eventually started venturing abroad. So that's how it all started out for me. But I've got to actually look back and say, my upbringing on music from my parents is certainly where the love for all things music comes from. My dad was massively into funk, disco, and soul, and the music I was exposed to. For example, on the back seat of his car, growing up, it was anything from David Bowie to Prince, James Brown, all that sort of stuff, and it stands the test of time. All that music, and you can hear that in the radio show and in my DJ sets, that a lot of the sample based music that I throw into my sets, which gives them that uniqueness, it does stem from there. And then you've got the hip hop element from where I started out as a DJ, but fundamentally everything falls down to that four to the floor.
And do you think that having such a exposure to an eclectic musical range is important? Do you think that's a good thing for producers to do?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just because you listen to a wide range of music, whether it's rock and roll, hip hop, pop, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the music that you make. But you might take influence on how somebody's put together the drum programming on a hip hop record into a tech house record, or the way that a vocal's been chopped up on something you hear on Radio 1 might become the way you want to chop up something in a remix. And you take influences from everything, not just what you see and hear on a daily basis, but what you've heard as you're growing up. And for me, it certainly was all of those Prince and David Bowie in particular, two artists that have stuck with me throughout my entire life. I've got pretty much everything both of those artists have ever made on vinyl and CD and MP3, because every time there's a format that I want to listen to them, I've got it readily available. And nowadays you just go on Spotify or whatever, but I still like to go back and open up an old record and give it a good sniff.
Yeah, there's nothing like sniffing records, is there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's something I miss about not DJing on vinyl anymore. Is that lovely smell when you take that fresh record out the sleeve.
Yeah, well, I think what I loved, well, it's coming back these days, so it's not even like we're talking about it in past tense anymore. But my favourite thing about vinyl is what it is as a design space. You've
Yeah,
got
absolutely.
a brilliant canvas to work with, and it's something that people can visually relate to what they're listening to. And back in the day, it used to open out this big double fold, and we lost that tangibility that goes with music to some extent, but
Yeah,
it's but surely filtering back into the mainstream.
that's a really good thing. Just yeah, having all of those senses kind of inspired by that purchase. Especially if you get a booklet in there as well with some wicked illustrations in there,
Yeah,
just makes it like an experience.
yeah, I think that's really important. From my perspective, anyway, the visuals are related to what you're listening to, whether that's the video, the artwork for the sleeve, or anything else that goes with it from a promotional point of view. Nowadays it's how can we push this music on social media? What content can we create to go with this? I think it's very important that what you're seeing visually fits well to the sound. So it's not to be taken lightly how you approach that. I think it's fundamental to the success of a record.
Right. So, what would you say is the biggest mistake of new producers? Because what you've touched upon there, the branding and the marketing, is so integral to success as a musician, rather than just churning out a good tune. That's just one part of it.
Yeah,
So, what would you say is perhaps, yeah, the biggest mistake that new producers make when it comes to branding and promoting themselves?
I think things have escalated very quickly in the industry over the last, say, decade. It used to be that if your music was good enough, you get signed, and then there would be a team of people that would be employed to make your logo look good and your music videos storyboarded to the hilt. Nowadays, to get your foot in the door of the industry, you've got to be not only a talented producer and also, in depending on genre, a talented DJ, but you've also got to be an expert marketeer. You've got to make sure that there's a good look and guidelines to some extent for how you want to be presented to the public. Whether that's the photography that you're happy with that represents you as an artist, the logo, and if you venture into doing your own radio show and record label, do they fit with me as an artist visually? Is there a good enough connection between everything that's going on? You really got to think things through, and like I say, with guidelines, they are just a guide. So you fit yourself in. Excuse me, stuttering there. Fit yourself in a particular lane, and don't necessarily be scared to deviate from that lane, but just remember that the focus for you as a brand and as an artist is in a particular lane, not to confuse your audience. And as a producer, if you're doing lots and lots of different things, you can have an alias for. So if I started producing hip hop, for example, I'd definitely not be releasing it as Lempo. It'd have to be a new pseudonym. What that would be, I don't know, because I've no intention to start producing hip hop anytime soon. I just say, clarify what you're about, stick to your guns, and just don't give up on it. A lot of people will start with a new name and it not go the way they want, and then just bin it off and start again, and you can end up, it gets really messy with the sort of digital footprint that you're leaving behind. So as many artists will tell you, but on the other hand, if you have several on the go for different sounds, then you've got several different markets that you're dipping your toe into, and the connections and networking that you can do with that is next level.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that personally I've struggled with in the past, because I like so many different genres of music, and I like producing a lot of different genres of music. But yeah, I've used different pseudonyms, and it's, even the big boys do it. You've got Eric Prydz, and he's got his Prida pseudonym.
Yeah.
It seems pretty rare. Maybe someone like Calvin Harris or Madonna will stick to that name and change their style. But then usually it seems like they'll have a batch of that style for a couple of years. They'll stick to their guns, be known for that, and then they'll be bold enough to change, rather than kind of chucking out loads of different styles all at the same time.
Yeah, I think the difference is once you're an established artist, you can get away with it. You know, changing your sound once everybody knows who you are. If you're on a global scale, that you're a household name. Changing what you do isn't as difficult as if you're somebody that's sort of nearer the bottom of the food chain starting out. So for Calvin Harris is actually a prime example. Everybody expects that he's going to be making that sort of EDM pop crossover stuff. And then what he did was he just stopped doing all that and hired all the really talented pop artists to come and work with him on what is essentially a funk album. And that was, to some people, that was a shock. But not really if you look back at what he was doing earlier in his career. It's almost like he fell into a lane that was working for him and stuck to it while he built himself up. And then he's gone full tilt at what he wanted to do originally.
Yeah.
But without taking a different approach and going with a different name. But you could also look back through history at artists from other genres. Like, for me, David Bowie was the absolute kingpin when it came to every album. He would be a different character, and he would take that persona, and not only would that be the character you saw on stage, but he would live his life as that character. Almost killed him a few times, so you can do it, but I do think that you've got to have a degree of success before you start chopping and changing the genre that you're working with.
Great, sound advice. So what you mentioned that at the beginning of your DJ career, you went into the club and you were like just pestering the DJ to let you have a go. That kind of persistence, I mean, that seems like it's really important. Is that something you would say to new producers? Because when they get the knockbacks and the criticisms, and the trolls on the internet, they can be pretty unforgiving. How do you keep that persistence in the face of that negativity?
You've just got to turn a blind eye to certain things. I mean, you're always going to get jealousy, is what it is to some extent. People that are bad-mouthing you on your Facebook page or tweeting you horrendous things. But, you can block someone and you can delete a post, and you've just got to be able to almost step over it and carry on. But what you're saying about persistence, at the beginning of my music career, several times I was referred to as relentless, and I actually made some promoters kind of just give up and want to get rid of me that bad that they gave me a gig, because I kept hammering them to force my way into situations that I knew I could then prove myself. Certainly as a DJ, things aren't that easy now because it's a more saturated market. Every man and his dog can, if they wish, hit a sync button and become a DJ, which is what's made things like your track selections far more important than they've ever been. And certainly the music that you make, if you make your own edits and things, anything that makes you stand out. But for me, I used to make mix CDs or tapes and go and hand them in person to promoters. And if I didn't hear back, I would do it again. And I would do it again. And I'd do it again until eventually, we're on first name terms. Like, oh, hi, Mike. You're right. Yeah, what have you got for me this month? All right, that thing. But eventually, I was getting the gigs that I wanted, the opportunities to prove myself. And without that, you're not going to get anywhere. And I find it really impersonal that people do approach promoters and A&Rs, etc., via Facebook message or a tweet, or just, it's all right to be relentless, but the way that you do it, get up off your arse and actually go to the promoter's event and do your utmost to meet him or meet his DJs or any member of his team, even his street team, anything. Get to know the people that are actually working the event that you want to get the gig at, and hopefully eventually they'll give you time of day. But nothing happens overnight, and I think that's a big problem with the way things have gone due to social media. We all want everything now.
Yeah.
We're not happy to wait, and that's why people sort of take these bad approaches. And I mean, I get it all the time. People will send a link to me to listen to a track they want me to sign to a eclectic, and 9 times out of 10, if I don't get the hello, how are you, and a little bit of background info on them before they send me a link, I don't even listen to it.
Yeah.
It got that bad actually that we've set up a demo box now so that people have to fill out a form about who they are, where they're from, what they've done before, etc. before I'll even tender the idea of listening to the track. So yeah, I mean, just be mindful of how you approach people. It's great to be relentless and persistent with what you want to get. Everybody's got goals and dreams, but the way you do it, approach it differently. Research the label, find out who the A&R is, how they like to receive music, and if you are going to message them via a social channel or an email, I'd ask them first, is it okay to send you some music? Tell them a bit about yourself, say hello, and then say, is it all right if I send you something? Don't just go gung-ho and fire a bunch of links to them. And always keep the links private. Tell them if you've shared it with anyone else, or if it's exclusively to them, and that you're waiting to hear from them before you share it with anyone else. And then back to promoters, go to the gigs. Be part of it, and don't just expect them to tender listening to your mix that you've sent them on Facebook or Twitter, SoundCloud, etc. Actually go down there. I mean, nowadays you can get a USB stick for a couple of quid. Stick some mixes on a USB stick, go down, try and meet them. Have maybe it doesn't cost that much to make your own business cards at home, or you can get some printed down the shop. Just get your logo on, who you are, put your social links on it and a pen drive, and actually put it in someone's hand, and they're more likely to actually listen to your mix and hopefully one day give you an opportunity at the club.
So it sounds like a combination of being relentless and just being courteous.
Definitely, manners cost nothing, and cold calling. We all hate cold calling, don't we? Someone rings you that you haven't asked them to call you, trying to sell you something. You 9 times out of 10 you're just going to go, no, I'm not interested, and hang up. It's exactly the same. It's just executed differently. If you're going to message somebody out of the blue with a bunch of stuff that you're trying to sell them, and you're trying to sell yourself, and it cheapens how they'll view you unless you do it the correct way. And it's always good to introduce yourself, be courteous, and then ask, would you mind taking a listen to this? I'd love to work with you, your brand, etc. But
I love that, man. Great advice. I've had the same as well with EDM tips, just since running it. Sometimes you'll just get people saying, do you want to collaborate? Without even saying, like, hello, how are you? I like your videos, whatever.
Yeah.
With all of this new media and social media, we're also busy a lot of the time. We get messages from our friends enough, let alone people we've never met before. So as you said, people are shooting themselves in the foot. You won't even listen to a link because you've already got enough to do. So yeah. People shouldn't shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I mean, obviously social media has made the world a much smaller place, and like you just mentioned, collaborations. You could collaborate with someone on the other side of the world overnight. You do a bit here, send it them, they do a bit while you're in bed. You got it back by the time you get up, and a track's finished pretty quickly. And social media is great for the music industry in that respect. It's also great for self-promotion of your label, night, radio show, you as an artist. Whatever it is you're selling, if it's a track you've produced, a night that you're putting on, it's fantastic from that side of things. But you shouldn't be using social media to approach people that you're trying to get to sign you or book you, in my opinion anyway.
Okay, brilliant. If we go on to a bit more of the music writing side of things,
yeah.
I mean, how do you generate ideas when you're starting a track?
I normally start off with percussion and just sort of get the groove going, and then I build on that loop. I never do anything more than 30 seconds until I've got what I would consider in that 30 seconds to be the track at its fullest point.
Yeah.
And sort of reverse engineer from there to do the arrangement. I sort of have my own templates now for whatever type of track I'm doing. But when I first started out, I used to download music by artists that I looked up to and look at and study their arrangements, and then almost follow them as a template until eventually I was settled on my own templates. And now, I go into Ableton and open up something. It's not necessarily a blank canvas, but I've got everything set up for my percussion and basses and whatnot, and I know what my go-to VSTs, etc. when I'm starting out with ideas. But the influence can come from anywhere, that makes the idea spark. I could just be watching TV and like something that I heard on an ad and go, oh yeah, that'd be good, that'd make a good track. Or you're in the car with the radio on, and it might not even be necessarily music, and you'll just get something in your head. That happens to me a lot, and I tend to just I'm not going to say that I do this while I'm driving, because no, I don't. But I might record a little vocal hook into my phone, or whistle, hum, beatbox a tune that I've thought of, and then it's readily available on your device when you get into the studio, that you can then start turning that into a reality.
Cool. So I was going to ask if you've got any kind of general workflow tips, but I mean, that sounds sound, recording your ideas on a phone and stuff, because as you say, inspiration can come at any time, and most of us aren't in the enviable position where you can just say, right, I'm going to the studio now to write a track at any point of the day or night.
Well, I have several times run out of storage for the amount of voice recordings that I do on my phone. So that tells you how many times. I mean, a lot of them, you get into the studio and you go, I can't even remember what I was thinking there. But certainly with writing, when it's vocal stuff, top line hooks is something that I've always been quite good at. But then I would bring in other writers to work with me on things, to sort of pad them out and get the verses together. But I've, as time's gone on, you learn from the people that you bring into the studio as well. And I'm capable now of writing the entire track by myself, but then getting, a talented mix down engineer or mastering engineer to sort of put the final touches on things, because it's important when you're going to put the music out there that it's as good as it can be. And I know that I'm not the world's greatest mixing down my tracks, and certainly don't have as much knowledge when it comes to mastering as people like yourself or Stuart Kettridge is someone that I've been using a lot recently as well, and he mastering. But when it comes to the label as well, we always request that they'll send us the pre-master and we take care of the mastering, because we want the standard to stay high,
Yeah.
And it's always yourself, actually. You do all of the mastering for Eclectic, so testament to you.
Thank you.
All of those tracks that you've made sound fantastic.
Well, you send over the good raw materials, man. It's very hard to master a track that's been poorly produced.
Well, yeah, you can't polish a turd, but you
exactly.
can roll it in glitter.
You can roll it in glitter, indeed. Cool. Okay, and what's the most common production mistake that you hear when you get tracks sent to the label, or when you just listen to music by new producers?
A lot of the time when we have a demo submission, the tracks aren't finished. People almost think that the label will give them the feedback that will then let them finish the track later, and that is rather annoying, because not only have you wasted the A&R's time, but they're unlikely to listen to the next one that you send. So, I mean, my only advice on this would be, do not send a record to a record label unless it's the final product. It doesn't have to be mastered to a top standard. You can even say, it's not. This is not mastered. This is a pre-master. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. People just got volume control on whatever device they're going to listen to music on. So just A&Rs will just push the gain up, and if they like the record, they'll deal with getting it mastered. But don't send something that isn't fully produced or fully arranged. 2-minute clips of what are effectively ideas for a record.
Yeah.
Don't those two A&Rs. And I know that sounds like common sense, but it clearly isn't, because a lot of people do it.
Right. So get your feedback like before sending it to labels, send them the finished product.
If you see yourself as a producer, or that's what you're aspiring to be, then you're going to know other producers and other DJs. Get their feedback to help you finish your record. And if there's something that you want to achieve on a record that you're not capable of yet, it doesn't make it any less your record to bring in a specialist musician to do a session. You know, if you need a keys player, get a professional keys player to help you finish. It might cost you a few quid, but your record's more likely to get signed. Or if, you know, there's a particular vocal that you want, but you know that the sample's never going to get cleared, or a label might not touch it because that's not going to get cleared, rewrite it and get somebody to re-vocal it for you. There's ways and means around pretty much anything in the music industry. And it's just about bringing the right people to the party to help you achieve what you want. And that's something that I've done throughout my career. You know, I can't do everything. So when I find somebody who I think is particularly talented at something, you know, keep them as a contact, bring them into your label family, or even part of your production team as an artist. Every record I've ever made, there's not been one where I've done absolutely everything, because you can't. You know, you can't be specialist at being the creative, coming up with the idea, then the arrangement of the track, playing all of the instruments on the track, as I mentioned, the mix down, and then the final part, the mastering. And you know, if you're going to be independent and release music yourself, you've got to get the artwork done. You've got to think about music videos. There's so much to be considered, and you cannot do it all yourself. So, I mean, I've always looked to bring in the best that's available to me in regards to musicians and engineers and mix down and mastering engineers, etc., just to make sure that the final product, is the best it can be before it gets sent to a label or released independently.
So every now and again we learn a technique or a skill that kind of just gives us a massive jump in the quality of what we output. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind as having been a game changer in upping the quality of your productions?
Yes. I don't know what year it was. I think it was 2013, 2014. I got asked, I think it was at BPM, did I do my own mix downs? And I was relatively naive at the time to the procedure when it came to mixing down a record. I used to, you know, throw a load of bits together myself and hope for the best when it came to having them mastered. But the mix down side of things, when you actually sit down and get into the nitty gritty of that, it can make or break a record. And when you're mixing, you can pull out elements that you didn't necessarily think were a big part of the record, but they become key. And also you might notice something that wasn't quite right that you'll decide to ditch. And I'd never really seen that up until that point as important as it really is. And I would say to anyone who wants to get signed to the, you know, that label that they're buzzing about because they want to be part of it, you listen to the records on that label, then listen to your own and try and mix it as good as theirs are. And sometimes that does mean sort of pulling back a bit and losing some elements of your production, just to get the record as big as it can be. I mean, you'll know yourself from when you're mixing down records, Will, if you had all of the stems, you'd probably think, oh, I'm going to take that bit away or change the frequency just on that one element. And that's so important to the final product of a record. The mastering engineer can make your record as big as possible without crushing it, but the mix down's got to be bob on for him to get the best out of the mastering. So before you get to that final stage, you've done all your creative part, you've got all of the music, it's arranged, but that mix down is so vital to how successful your record will be. And as I say, I only really started seeing that in 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Since then, I'll sometimes let it be 6 or 7 months until I'm happy with a record during the mix down phase.
Yeah. Well, it's quite good for me that you've just said that, because I'm literally just putting the finishing touches on a brand new mixing course, specifically on mixing EDM. It's been a lot of work, but yeah, because the mix down can make or break a record. I believe that wholeheartedly. So yeah, I can plug myself a bit there.
Yes. So viewers, make sure you come back and watch Will's mix down course that he's going to put up shortly.
Yeah, it's awesome. So have you got any particular DJs or artists that you're digging at the moment?
Well, at the moment is a broad term, because for me, I always fall back to the old school jocks from when I first got into the scene. So people that have survived the 90s and early noughties and are still here today. So for me, Norman Cook, Fatboy Slim, just for his energy when he performs. You know, if you've ever seen him perform, then you'll know that it is a performance. Not only is he DJing 2 records, but he's up there. He's in the crowd almost, and he's living every second of it with his audience. And anyone who's seen me DJ live will know that I'm very similar in that aspect, that I like to get well and truly involved with the crowd. If I can reach, I will be giving high fives out. In some instances, I've actually been in the crowd, and I do jump around until I'm wet through. So, you know, Norman will always be a standout jock for me. Also, Todd Terry, you know, he stood the test of time, and somebody who I've been lucky enough to work with on his record label. He's phenomenal, really, the way he's stayed up to date but still maintained his sound throughout the decades. And a more modern one who I really enjoy listening to would be Eats Everything, Dan Pearce. He's a fantastic DJ and not a bad producer either.
Absolutely. Brilliant. And have you got anything coming up?
Release-wise, yeah, there's quite a lot in the works, actually. I've got a couple of originals on Eclectic that will be out in the summer. Actually, there's one out today. I say the summer, so there's one out today in the spring. That one's Smoke and Mirrors, which you worked on, doing the mix down and mastering. Later in the summer, I've got a second release with Roland Clark. Roland is phenomenal, and
great producer.
Yeah, you know, he doesn't get enough credit for what a genius he actually is. You know, he's a great DJ, a very, very talented writer. There's few that write the way he does, and then he can, you know, he gets across the vocal performance himself. He doesn't need to bring someone in to do that. So, a bit of an all-rounder is our Roland, and his label Delete, which is based out of Atlanta, where he is now. You know, well worth checking out if you're not familiar with Delete Records. But you know, Roland's an absolute star as far as I'm concerned, and I've been fortunate enough to work with him a couple of times, and I have another one on the way. And trust me when I say that this is a big record, and I can't wait for that. Also got a few remixes. I've got a remix of Dawn Penn coming out on Big Mix Up Records. That's a joint remix with Rough Diamond. I've also got another remix on Big Mix Up of Rosemary Quay. That one's out next month. And also the big one, which is the launch record for Rough's label Super Earth. That's called Rock the Discotheque. This record, dude, it's insanely good, right? There's so much going on in it, and you know, you'll struggle to sit still if you hear it. It's a brilliant record, and I'm, you know, thrilled to have been asked to do the remix of it because the parts are fantastic. So there's a Lempo remix on the package there, which will be, you know, well worth checking out once it drops in the summer.
Cool. Well, I'll put links to all of the tracks and labels you mentioned in the show notes so people can find out more about that. So I've got to ask you, man, because it's like the holy grail of dance music production is having your tracks played on Radio 1 in the dance shows. I mean, it's a worldwide institution. And you've had that. So could you tell us a bit about that and how that came about?
Yeah, well, it's been a couple of records now, but the one that you're talking about, I was very fortunate that the person who I'd written the track with, Ashley, he is a celebrity in his own right because he's an actor. And he knew a few of the guys at Radio 1, and they'd called him in to do an interview. And while he was there, he actually passed the record over, and it circulated at the BBC. So from there, it got spins from Greg James, Pete Tong, Danny Howard. So it's just one of those things. Fortunate that it was in the right place at the right time. But then, there's other records where I was lucky enough that my manager just passed it to the right person and it got through to the specialist DJs and ended up on the right shows. So, how it gets there is irrelevant. It's just if when it gets there, they hear it and they like it, then they might give it that spin that, as you mentioned, it's the holy grail. Because the reach, once you've got a play on Radio 1, it's great. People will just suddenly start looking for you. And finding you on all the different social networks, and hopefully they'll buy your next record based on the fact that they've heard one on Radio 1.
Which ties nicely into what you were saying earlier about branding and having a good solid presence online for when they do come searching.
Exactly. One of the easiest mistakes to make is to have several different URLs. So for me, every single page of mine that's official is /Lempo. There's no other permutations of that, where you might find somebody who's got several different ones. It's so much easier if they're all the same. It can be a pain in the arse to actually achieve that, because there might be people that have already registered the name that you want, but again, there's ways around that. I had a couple that I couldn't get, like YouTube and Twitter were already taken for just /Lempo, and I am Lempo on there for quite some time, until I registered as a trademark. And once I'd done that, I just had to send a letter to whichever platform I wanted the change on, and they would then tell the person that had the name, unfortunately, you can't have it anymore. But, I'm not saying to everyone go around and start pissing people off, stealing domain names, but it does, if you uniform everything so that it's easy to remember that it's just / artist name on everything, and that when they get there, almost uniform it to the extent that the cover photo and the avatar are the same across everything. If you're going to update one, update them all, and it just makes it all feel more official.
Cool. And I've got two more questions, but one of them, it's if it's a bit, just feel free to tell me to piss off, but from my experience and from talking to other producers, it can be a lonely thing to do. I mean, you've mentioned that you work with teams a lot, which kind of alleviates that. But it can be challenging, and things always happen to kind of knock you back at times. So if it's not too prying, would you mind sharing one of the biggest struggles you've had in your career and how you've overcome it? Like, it could be a particular thing that happened or a mindset or something.
Yeah, I had to take a break a few years back due to ill health. No fault of my own. Just I started suffering with. I'll not bore you with it, but I had a couple of brain seizures, and it meant that things like I couldn't drive for a while, and it sort of I took a step back from everything, and when I've come back, I've not only have I come back to an industry that's massively evolving, but also I've come back as a family man. I didn't have kids before, and now I do. And when you're saying about it can be a lonely situation to work in the music industry as a producer, yeah, it can. And you've got to be mindful that although putting a team together of people that do want to work with you, if they're the right people, they cost money. So you can't just every time you have a studio session bring 5-6 people to the party. You tend to work a lot on your own until you're satisfied that the track is written, and then swap that guitar synth out for a real guitarist, or that scratch vocal that you performed yourself. Get the vocalist to replace it with a half decent one. I mean, yeah, I do vocal a lot of my own stuff, but when I know that it would be better suited to say someone like Flip, then I'll send it over and say, Flip, can you redo these parts for me? Or Inabel Diaz, who we're working with at the moment, she's a really talented writer. she can come in and revocal something and even rewrite it to make it better, because that's what she does for a living. She is a writer. So bringing people in that are talented at what you're trying to achieve, but you can't quite get there on your own. Don't feel bad about that. And it's still your record. It's still your idea. You're just being the creative director to some extent. And that's what producers are. You're taking the best elements you can find and putting together a masterpiece. And how that's achieved doesn't really matter. If you played the guitar on your record or someone else did. I mean, someone like Nile Rodgers, think of all the hits he's had a hand in, just literally showing up and playing a hook on a guitar. He's a session musician or producer who gets brought in when someone feels that he's right, or they can afford him. But don't be ashamed to bring someone in who's better than you at a particular element of your production, just to push it on that level. Bringing in a guitarist to play a part better than you can is going to enhance your production 5-10%. Bringing in a vocalist who's better than you are, or any of your friends that wanted to do it for free, is going to enhance your record by 10-15%. It's integral that you get the best that is available to you, wherever that comes from, to make your records a reality.
Great. All right, Mike. Well, I'm mindful of your time and how much I've taken up of it. So the last question is, if you could put one message on a billboard for all aspiring music producers to see, what would it be?
No surrender.
I like it. Yeah, concise.
Yeah, I know it's a solid statement, but it's so true of the music industry, because it's so saturated. It's easy to give up and get downhearted by negative feedback, or just don't give in. If you be, like, as we mentioned, the word relentless, you've got to be relentless. And all of those other things that we said, you might not be an expert marketeer, but I bet you can find one who can help you. And that's not surrendering. If you can't do it, find someone who can help you do it, and you'll get where you want to be.
Brilliant. Mike, thank you for your time. I know that the EDM Tips viewers are going to get a lot from this. So, thanks again, and see you later.
You're more than welcome, mate. See you soon.
Cheers, mate. Bye. And there you have it, guys. If you want to find out more about the mixing course mentioned in this video, you can click the link below this video. And until next time, cheers and happy producing.